Hey everybody, welcome to the Mark Parham Podcast. You can find me on Apple and Spotify by typing in Mark Parham Podcast. And when I say Apple, I mean Apple Podcasts. So again, just type in Mark Parham Podcast and I should pop up on Apple and Spotify. And I'm also on YouTube too. But I want to say this about Africans, because I'm looking at this whole thing with the Somalians in Minnesota and stuff like that. And the question I have is, why do Africans always disrespect Black Americans? And the reason why I'm saying that is because online a few years ago, some of these same Africans, Somalians, I'm just lumping them all together. I know people say this is wrong, but it is what it is. Some of these same groups in Africa, these same, countries in Africa, leaders in Africa, these were the same folks a few years ago that had all this, bad stuff to say about Black Americans. Oh, Black Americans are lazy. Black Americans are criminals. All this other stuff. And when you look at Trump calling out some of the Somalians in Minnesota, and I'm happy he did, now, as they say, people are doing a little research and realizing, well, wait a minute. You guys, for years, have been telling a lot of lies. And the reason why I say that is because when you had blacks on the internet say it, Black Americans, people said, oh, well, these people are being divisive and these people are, telling lies and not being friendly to African people and all this other mess. It took a white man to call some of these Africans out for them to get their wake-up call. And I'm glad Donald Trump did it, because I'm looking at Minnesota and this is fraud now. They said this is fraud where it's, at the $1 billion or at the $1 billion level, at least, when it comes to Minnesota. And so weren't these the same people and these same groups and folks from Africa that were, oh, well, blacks should work hard and blacks should, sit up and follow the rules. But I saw something on News Nation where it said 42% of Somalians in America or in Minnesota or something like that are on SNAP. 42%. Are you getting SNAP benefits? And I think it was Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken, or I guess America, something like that. But again, still a high level of Somalians and stuff getting SNAP benefits, getting welfare benefits, getting loans, all this stuff. And it's not just them, it's many folks from Africa that are in America. And so how can you point the finger at Black Americans when you're doing the things you accuse Black Americans of? Like, you can't accuse Black Americans of being lazy when you guys are sitting up and getting welfare benefits and free this and free that. Like, that's being a hypocrite. And so I'm happy. A lot of Black Americans are happy about what Donald Trump said, because it was a wake-up call that some folks who are Africans in America needed. Some of these folks that just come here and are disrespectful, that was, Trump gave them a little wake-up call. And I think it was something that was needed. It is something that needed to happen. Sometimes, you realize something when another community calls it out. And so, again, for the Africans that respect Black Americans, cool. But for the ones that, went online and, oh, I'm not Black and all this, because there were Somalians that said they weren't Black. I remember there were Somalians that came online, we're not Black, we're not like them. And, we don't claim Black Americans and we're different and all this other stuff. Now they're online crying the blues, or singing the blues. Oh, we're Black and, he's being racist and all this other stuff. And Black folks are saying, you know what? No, don't put us in this mess because you guys didn't want to be Black. Even look at Ilhan Omar. She was one of the main ones, had all this stuff to say about America year after year, and America's this and that, and America's racist and all this other mess. Ilhan Omar has a white husband. Again, how can you sit up and talk about white men and all this other stuff when you're married to one, when you come home to one, when you guys eat dinner together? And so a lot of these, folks, some of these Africans live double lives. Oh, the white man is this and that, but they'll come home to a white man or woman. Same thing with the men. Some of these men who are African or from these countries will sit up. Oh, white folks are this and that. But then as soon as a white woman, says hello to you, you're trying to get her phone number and be in a relationship with her. And so, a Trump, one thing I'll say about, him being president, and I'm not saying he's the perfect president, but he's exposing a lot of stuff. And it's crazy because Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota right now, he's, on TV and, we're going to get to the bottom of this and all this other stuff. No, this is something that's been going on. Like, don't sit up and lie to the American people and act like you're going to get to the bottom of this and, we're going to find out, what happened and all this other stuff. No, you're only doing this because Trump called you guys out and because Trump is sending folks down there to figure out what's going on. That's the only reason why Tim Walz is wanting to do something. And isn't it amazing that Tim Walz was one of the folks elected by Kamala Harris? Like, could you imagine if Kamala won? And so, again, can't go out there and talk about black Americans and then expect us to defend you. And so a lot of black Americans, and I'm proud, are saying, you know what? Don't include us in this. This isn't our problem. And then you hear the other myth, oh, well, Donald Trump is going to deport African Americans. You can't because we're actually Americans. That ain't going to happen. So, that whole DNC sort of myth after the day, oh, Donald Trump is going to deport everybody who's black and just wait and all this other mess, those talking points from some of those, folks that are in the DNC and all these leaders and stuff like that and politicians, that's not going to happen. Black Americans, we're Americans. And so, again, they're only saying that because they want us to get involved and go out on the streets and march and protest. No, black Americans are tired of standing up for everybody. Black Americans are tired of saying, oh, well, you know what? Because this is another racial group, oh, we understand. We want equality. No, black Americans are like, you know what? We support folks that support us. That's what black Americans are saying. And so, right now, black Americans aren't running out in the streets and protesting with signs and all this other stuff like we used to. Now we're saying, you know what? Let's stop and think. Do these folks really respect black people in America? No. And so it's just interesting how the tone is starting to switch. Oh, well, we're all black and all this other stuff is black, 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 including Ilhan Omar. Oh, being black and all this other stuff. Before, y'all didn't want to claim you're black. Before, you guys, were everything else. Y'all were so ashamed of being black American or just saying you guys were black. No, hold up. I know I was sort of talking crazy a little bit. Hold up. You guys were ashamed of black Americans, and now all of a sudden you want to be, black. You want to tell everybody, you want to tell the whole world you're black. It's not going to work this time. And so maybe you should have had that same, awareness before all this happened. Wouldn't it have been nice if some of these Somalians said, you know what, I'm proud to be black? No, they want to separate themselves. They want to be, something else. And so you guys didn't want to be black. And so guess what? Black Americans are like, you got to handle that. You got to, sit up and handle your own problems now. And so it took Donald Trump to do it. And a lot of black folks in America are happy he did it. And it was a wake-up call. Sometimes in life, especially when you're a minority, sometimes it takes somebody to wake you up and say, and to call you out on something for you to be like, well, you know what? Maybe I do need to change. Because I think a lot of times, people from these other these African countries and stuff, they project, sort of their insecurities and fears and different things they don't like about themselves onto black Americans. It's almost like, okay, well, I'm going to say black Americans aren't smart because they look at their country and, some of their countries have schools where you don't have any running water, in their schools when you turn on a sink or something. And so, again, blacks ain't going for the okie doke. Black Americans aren't going for the okie doke. We're not just going to go out and support folks that talk a lot of stuff online. And so I hope Donald Trump keeps on investigating Minnesota. I hope they look at, what's going on in California. I hope they look at what's going on in New York. I hope they investigate all of these states where these immigrants in these cities where these immigrants talk all this mess about black Americans and then come to find out, they're sitting up and getting all these benefits after the day. And so I hope that Donald Trump keeps on going on with, investigating Somalians. I really hope he investigates everything. I truly do. And not just them. You have Nigerians that also are doing stuff. You have you have a bunch of groups a bunch of African countries that are doing stuff in America. And you have a bunch of people that are so disrespectful to black folks. Like, they get online and the way they talk, you wouldn't even know they're black. And so, again, in the comment section, let me know how you feel about, the Somalians in Minnesota. And, do you agree with what Donald Trump is doing right now as far as investigating businesses that are connected to Somalians in Minnesota, and how he's investigating, some of the corruption in Minnesota? So let me know how you feel in the comment section. Thank you.